I believe Indigenous sovereignty to be more than just a sense of power over land or explicit domination over tangible, spatial possession such as property or rights thereof. Indigenous sovereignty is dependent on interconnectivity and personal relations, having a mutual respect between two or many different peoples while sustaining a peace that is rooted in coexistence. Self-governance relative to indigenous sovereignty should be executed without unnecessary distractions or influences that threaten the fluidity of negotiations, treaties, laws, and other such interactions. Freedom is important in indigenous sovereignty as indigenous cultures and peoples have the right to impose and carry out matters of their own nations in their own ways, in their own time, and in any form they please. The example of visual culture that I wanted to focus on was an event involving protests of indigenous and environmental justice groups rallying at the U.S. Bank headquarters in Minneapolis, Minnesota, to protest the bank's investment in pipeline projects and association with organizations such as Energy Transfer Partners, which was the company behind the Dakota Access Pipeline. This event happened earlier this year on February 3rd in response to the establishment's involvement in pipeline projects after clearly promising to divest from such practices as they threaten the well-being and health of communities and environments in close proximity to these fossil fuels. One of the many speakers at the event, Joy Braun, a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux and the Indigenous Environmental Network, said, quote, "Due to the broken promises by U.S. Bank and their funding of pipelines such as the Dakota Access Pipeline, we are already witnessing pipeline spills and accidents that are putting the environment and people at risk. We will not allow U.S. Bank, or any entity for that matter, to break their promises to the people, especially when it concerns the health and safety of our communities. Funding companies like Energy Transfer Partners is funding environmental disaster. It puts millions of people in jeopardy, violates tribal sovereignty, tramples on landowners' rights, pollutes the air and water, turns a blind eye to the many horrific safety violations of this company, and condones such acts as bulldozing our ancestors' graves. We demand U.S. Bank hold its promise to stop funding these pipelines and to stop threatening our land and water." End quote. Some may say that these movements to push for installations of pipelines and other projects promote the influx of jobs and economic bolstering, and yet while these claims are correct, there is no denying the health and safety ramifications that ensue. This is a debate between honesty and morality with health and socioeconomic gains. Though the inception of these environmentally detrimental projects create productivity, the negative implications heavily outweigh any argument that could suggest that these projects are in the best interest of indigenous peoples, their communities, and humanity as a whole. This display of nonconformist ideals and peaceful protest embodies this previously mentioned idea of indigenous sovereignty, as these peoples spoke out about their disgust with the issue. Indigenous sovereignty is about togetherness and compatibility between groups of people and trying to find a common ground with a like-minded, well-voiced approach to whatever issue or altercation is at hand. By expressing a clear voice in response to a concerning act, empowers others who aren't in a position to speak their minds, holding out a tether to real-in supporters and to solidify that bond in giving their collective all the more strength. Well, apparently I forgot to record. I thought I pressed the button, but apparently